try and keep it relatively brief. I would move straight on. This is me, and this is the degree that I coordinate. So just a little bit of background about the degree, because I think it's important in terms of looking at the student experience and the challenges that we face as well. It's a Master of Information Science. It's a new degree in its second year, but it is heavily based on a very successful existing degree. So I had the pleasure of inheriting an awesome course, which I'm not sure people say very often. I think we often hear about gripes of, the courses that I've been lumped with needs reworking. It is a really great course, and it has been for a long time. We have two quite distinct cohorts, and those are Library and Information Studies major students who tend to have a humanities sensibility, and we have Information Management students who tend to be students who are interested in IT but don't want to code, but they tend to be more IT focused. We have within those two cohorts some really interesting mixes of students in there. In the LAS major, we have people who are mothers returning to work, which makes up quite a big portion of our student group. People who are looking for a career change, so teachers who don't want to teach anymore, from a whole bunch of different professions. And we also have students who've come straight out of their undergraduate degrees into this postgraduate degree. So it's probably about a 50-50 mix in terms of people who've been out in the workforce and built careers in other professions, and those students who've come straight out of those undergrad degrees. In terms of the course's design, it moved into a blended mode from a face-to-face degree about 10 years ago. And up until probably, say, 5 or 6 years ago, we were doing lots of format shifting of face-to-face lectures for the online cohort, using discussion forums and those kinds of things to create activities and engagement for the online students. About 6 years ago, we started to use strategies that we would probably now call connected learning, and that really started to happen when we started to pick up using social media more and to weave more social media content into our course, because it's very important for the information professions. And then about 4 years ago, we started bringing our online students into face-to-face classes on campus. Our course is extremely flexible. It's delivered in a mode where students can come to class on campus one week, come to class online the next, and the week after that they might choose to catch up at home in their own time. We allow them to move fluidly between modes, so they don't have to tell us what they're doing from week to week. So that means in some units we'll have an almost entirely internal enrolment, but we will see, a handful of students that come regularly to class. Because of the way that our students move fluidly across online and face-to-face modes, for quite some time I've been thinking about the term blended learning and the way it's applied in universities. And for me, the blend is around synchronous and asynchronous activities rather than around technology-assisted and traditional delivery. So what we're aiming to do is to provide the right blend or the right mix of experiences for the various units. The last kind of point I wanted to make here is that we are constantly pushing boundaries. We're unusual in our school and our faculty in that we have an online degree, and we're unusual in the way that we deliver that material. So we're also pushing boundaries around staffing models. We need different staffing models than what is currently available to us in terms of traditional sessional roles. We push the boundaries with institutionally supported technology to their limit and beyond, to the point that we often look for consumer technology solutions that we can use to improve student experience. For example, buying Skype certified speakerphones to use with tools like Blackboard Collaborate to bring our online students into the classroom. And we also do a lot with non-institutionally supported tech that you might see in universities. For example, we use Adobe Connect, which is not the university solution for virtual classrooms. So we're in the middle of this project at the moment in the analysis phase, looking at our students' expectations, experiences and preferences with regard to their study in our dual mode program. So I thought I'd just quickly run you through a few insights from that, as well as some insights that we've picked up over the last few years. So in this recent research, the students have told us that the flexibility is critical. They highly value the options that we give them for engaging in learning. In particular, they want to be able to attend classes online. Now, this is interesting because it's also one of the biggest problems for them in the degree is that the technology just isn't necessarily up to scratch, and so we've got this tension between them wanting it and then the barriers with the technology. We know that bite-sized content works for them, so they have indicated in the latest study we've been doing that they like having mini lecture content, so videos that go for a kind of a maximum of 8 minutes, and they might have 2 or 3 of those that they watch before coming to a more active class or a class that is made up of guest speakers from industry. They're frustrated with the technology. They know that we're doing the best we can with the technology, but there's a growing frustration that the experience they have using the virtual education tools isn't as good as the experience they have with virtual consumer tools. Why isn't Adobe Connect or Blackboard Collaborate as good as the FaceTime experience? And so that for them is a big problem. So the more proficient they are with technology in their personal lives, the more demanding they're becoming, and rightly so. The quality of the tools really drives us crazy too. They have diverse needs and wants. Despite the fact that we often don't have very many people in the classroom, there is still a cohort that wants a face-to-face degree. We also have students who, often the students who've come straight out of undergraduate degrees and don't already have careers, they want on-campus classes in the middle of the day. The rest of our cohort want to come along at night. So we've got to balance those tensions out as well. What we also are learning in the latest research, which, I guess is kind of implied, but it's never actually come through in research results before, is that the effectiveness of what we do depends on the staff members that are delivering. So we know that staff skill, knowledge and aptitudes are having a significant impact on student experience. It's an affinity or an ability to use technology in a really fluid way, to troubleshoot, think on your feet, find another solution when something doesn't work. Those are the things that make these experiences work for students. The connection to industry is also really important. So they've told us that they want to hear from industry as much as possible. And so that works well with that model that I talked about where we have kind of the bite-sized mini lecture content and lots of industry speakers. There's one, actually I'll mention that on the next slide. So moving on from that and looking at what the implications are for us, here are the challenges that we're currently facing based on what we know our students want and like. The technology is failing us. Institutional technology solutions don't do what we need. That's no fault of the institution, or perhaps it's the fault of all institutions for not lobbying for better solutions. But what we do is we go rogue, and then the problem is we have to provide our own support. So I'm the course coordinator, but I'm also the tech support for the degree as well, which is quite a bit of work. The market for virtual classroom tools is awful. None of them do what we need and all of them fail us repeatedly. The demand for 24/7 availability, I'm sure everyone is familiar with this. Students, both undergrads and postgrads, expect us to be available 24/7. And with postgrads, that's not just a want, it's actually a need. They need us to be available on the weekend because that's when they're studying. And my personal view is that we need to make ourselves available on the weekends, but logistically, how do we do that and how can we expect that of staff? The next kind of challenge for us is that flexibility is hard work and it's lots of work. Format shifting face-to-face lectures just doesn't work anymore. Nobody wants to watch a 2-hour lecture recording, including me. So why would I inflict it on students? But the problem is that delivering the content in other ways, for example, by creating mini lecture videos, is really, really labour intensive. And it also requires a different skill set. So it's quicker, easier and cheaper to stand up and lecture in front of a classroom and record that for students, but that's not what they want. When it comes to active learning, we really need to design for 3 modes of delivery. We design for delivery on campus in the classroom. We design for simultaneous online delivery where we have an online facilitator helping us in the virtual classroom while we manage the face-to-face classroom. And then we design as well for an asynchronous version of the same activities for those students who don't want to attend on campus or online. They can then do the work on their own without watching a 2-hour lecture. So that's triple the learning design workload. Staffing models need to evolve. So to teach the way we teach, particularly the way that I teach in some of the more technology focused units, we need to be in the online learning community with the students. And to do that, we need a different type of sessional support. We don't need tutors, we need online community managers. And those aren't things that are factored into the way that sessional staffing is structured. And how do we pay them and what do we employ them as? It also requires a very particular skill set that's different to tutoring, and that is something that is innate for some people, but for others it's not. And those types of skills, these aren't supported by existing training opportunities. It's hard for us to manage the diverse needs and wants of our students. They want different things. When they want to come during the day, or half the cohort wants to come at night, how do we actually reconcile that? We also know that some of them love social media, some don't want to go near Facebook with a 10-foot pole. But how do we reconcile this diversity in preference? Support services, their delivery models don't necessarily work for us. So we've got postgrad students, lots of international students who often have small children at home, and they need to access services like academic writing services, which are delivered through 4 or 6 week on-campus classes that run for a couple of hours. That's not what they need, and it doesn't fit with the way we teach either. Our library is actually very good, and our liaison librarians work with us in a really fluid and flexible way, partly probably because we're librarians ourselves, so we can kind of talk the talk with them, but they happen to be a great service. They will get into our Facebook communities and answer questions there instead of running an information skills, information literacy class for us. But I'm not sure to what extent that happens in other institutions. So we need them in the community, not necessarily in the library. There is one other point that I want to make that isn't on the slide here, and it's really just become apparent to me in the last couple of weeks. And that is the problems that we need to manage, or the tensions we need to manage around the transition to a 2-year master's program under the new Australian Qualifications Framework. And it's only just becoming really apparent this year because we've got our first cohort into their 2nd year. So we are managing now a degree where 1/4 of the degree is project focused, at least research informed, but very often with our students, they're actual research projects. And that is an incredibly big supervision load and an incredibly big supervision load increase. So we've actually been working on models for cohort-based supervision for quite some time. That's helping, but this is going to be a bigger issue. The other issue here is I'm teaching in the research methods unit that is across all of our masters in IT programs. And what I'm seeing is, we'd kind of gotten to this point where a master's degree was the next thing you did after your bachelor's. It wasn't quite the new bachelor's, but it was going that way. They were very coursework focused degrees, and what we've now got are these students coming into a coursework master's who are saying to us, why am I doing a research methods unit? And why do I have to do a research project? Because they're choosing a coursework master's and they've got this research component. Now that might be great for the professions, and it might be, in our profession in particular, I think it's a fantastic thing. But we are facing this situation where students have expectations of the courses that were based on old models, and we're having to kind of reconcile those at the moment. So, trying to teach them about research-based practice and trying to help them through that transition process, but their expectations are different, and sometimes they know they're not cut out for research, and they're quite overwhelmed by the idea that they're going to have to do some. So that was a really whirlwind tour through some of the issues and challenges for us and what our students expect. But I will throw some of this stuff up on my blog, so with the link to which is on the slides, and I'll put that up in the next couple of days. So thank you very much.